Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. I once had back in school a teacher who asked, if I have 5 bottles in one hand and 6 bottles in one hand, then what do I have? I answered, a drinking problem. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 gateway games of all time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 gateway games. So what do I mean by gateway games? Well, this is a term we use very often in the industry, games that are fairly easy and light to use that can get people into the hobby. But critically here, I'm also saying these are games that I still like to play. I think they're still good games, and I'd be happy to play them even with people who are experienced, right? They're not just games for gateway for new people into the hobby, but they work great to get people into the hobby. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you what I think are my top 10 games that meet this criteria. And as I usually do, I'm ranking them in terms of fun. How much fun do I have with these games? So I got a couple of honorable mentions. First of all, I want to say Star Trek Missions. Star Trek Missions is a great card game. It's kind of based on is it Fantasy Realms, where essentially you draw cards and select cards and try to get cards to match and to work with each other. That's a super fun, light game that I think new gamers will really enjoy. And then, of course, I've got Gravwell. Star Trek Missions was from WizKids. Gravwell was from Renegade. And Gravwell is a great game. You're trapped in a black hole. You're trying to get out of a black hole, and you play cards. And then depending on the sequence of cards, it's going to determine who goes first and how gravity works for you or against you to get you out of the black hole. It's a great game. I've got the second edition, and I absolutely love it. So those are my honorable mentions. But now let's go ahead and talk about the games themselves that are on the list. My number 10 is probably the most obvious gateway game there is, because it was really the first game that kind of cut across a lot of ideas about what gaming is and what board games were. And this is kind of the game I think that in you can really almost credit with the board game craze that has occurred in the nearly 3 decades since its release. And this is Catan. Catan, or Settlers of Catan, is a very fun game. I still enjoy it. I actually don't have a copy of the regular Catan. I do have a travel copy, and I do have the Star Trek version, which is the one I prefer to play. But Catan is still very, very fun. It's a great game about negotiating and kind of, managing your resources and what have you. I really do like it primarily because of that negotiation. I really enjoy that. But it's just a light, fun game that still drags me in whenever I play it, and it is a great way to introduce people to what kind of games are if all they've ever played are things like Monopoly and Life and Suri and what have you. So Catan is a fantastic game. That was published by Mayfair. I think it's published by Catan itself now, but that is my number 10. My number 9 is another great game, and this is a great game of bluffing and just fun and laughing, and this is Sheriff of Nottingham. This is from CMON. Sheriff of Nottingham is this tremendous game of you're trying to get your goods across the sheriff. The sheriff can decide if he's another player. It rotates. Sheriff can decide if he's going to go ahead and accept and just let it go through. He may ask for a bribe. He may try to reach in there and call your bluff. It's just tremendous fun. This is a game that had been around for a long time, and then I just didn't play it until a couple of years ago, and I was surprised that the hype was actually true. Fantastic game. Sheriff of Nottingham, that is from CMON, and that is my number 9. My number 8 is another great game that's been with us for a long time. There's a lot of different versions, a lot of different ways to play this game, but this is Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride is a great game of set collection and building railroads. There's, like I said, different maps. I've got both the anniversaries of the America and Europe map. I don't think I played with my anniversary edition for the Euro map yet, but it's a great game. And it's funny because it's one of Holly's favorite games, and I remember I played this game with Holly, and Holly's a very classy lady, and it surprised me one time. I stole a route from her, and I got a swear word out of her. It was pretty funny. She was not happy that I took that route from her. But it's a tremendous game. I love Ticket to Ride, and I played several of the maps. I still think I like just the regular Europe and America maps the best. Great game, and it's a great way to introduce people into the hobby. So that is Ticket to Ride. That is number 8, and that is from Days of Wonder. Number 7 is a game that is pretty cool. It's pretty light, pretty quick, but I think it packs a huge punch. And it also happens to be one of my girlfriend's favorite games. This is Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns is a great game where you're trying to you've got different kinds of buildings with different powers and different abilities and different ways to score, and you're trying to select resources to put on your board to make the best combinations of buildings that you can. But you never know what somebody else is going to select, and you all have to put out whatever resource somebody else selects. So it's a great, oh, you're shaking your fists when they pick something you don't want and you're running out of space. But it is a wonderful game. It's a tense game, it's a nail biting game, and it's a very easy game to learn and to teach. So for that, Tiny Towns is my number 7 gateway game. That is from AEG. My number 6 strays into this line between war game and kind of more accessible general audiences game. This is another Days of Wonder title. This is Memoir 44. Memoir 44 has the commands and color systems, where, of course, you have military units, in this case, the Germans and the Americans in Normandy in 1944. You've got your center, your left, and your right flank, and you're playing cards that allow you to move in those different directions on those different flanks. And it is, again, incredibly fun. I actually haven't played this one in a while, and I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, I got to get this one out again because I love the Commands and Colors games, and they all have their own unique charms. But I do love the World War II theme here, and the fact that it's light, fairly easy to play and to teach. And every time I played this with people, and it was always pretty easy. In fact, I played this with Kim years ago, and she thought it was a lot of fun first time we played it. Um, really like Memoir 44, and it gives you kind of a feel of a war game, but it's still light enough that anybody can enjoy it. So this is Memoir 44 from Days of Wonder. That is my number 6. My number 5 is a game that came out here just fairly recently, and it's got a great IP. It's got the Star Wars IP. This is Star Wars: The Clone Wars from Z-Man Games. Star Wars: The Clone Wars is a riff on Pandemic. I could have put Pandemic up here, but I chose to do this one because I think the IP maybe will get people a little more interested and involved in it here. But Star Wars: The Clone Wars is essentially you are the Jedi, you're Anakin, Yoda, Mace Windu, etc., and you're going around the different planets in the galaxy trying to protect them from droid armies, and you're fighting the droid armies and trying to keep the droid armies from spreading. And you're doing this, but at the same time, one of the things that differentiates it from Pandemic is you have missions, and you got to go on these different missions and do different things. And the way you're using the cards are pretty fun too, because your cards are kind of your hit points, but they're also let you do abilities. Really a fun game. I think this is a great one to bring people into this Star Wars, or rather into the gaming universe, and through this fun Star Wars game. And there are other Star Wars games you could probably do this with, but I really like Star Wars: The Clone Wars here. So that is my number 5, Star Wars: The Clone Wars from Z-Man Games. My number 4 is Horrified from Ravensburger. And I could easily put Horrified or Horrified American Monsters on here. I actually kind of prefer American Monsters, but I think that some of the mini games are maybe a hair more complex, which is probably why I like it. But the original Horrified is great. You got Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, etc., etc. And they each have their own little mini game, and how you defeat them is based on these mini games. But it's a super easy game every turn. You're moving around, you're collecting items, you are using them to take actions, you are drawing these cards that tell you what monsters move and who they attack and what happens. And the whole time there's this terror track that's moving up. You got to keep the terror track from getting to the end, or you lose. Some really fun and interesting things here. And again, this is a game I've introduced to many people, and it's been a hit with everyone I have played it with, either experienced gamers or new gamers. They have all loved this game. Horrified is fantastic. So that is my number 4. That is Horrified, and that is from Ravensburger. My number 3 is a game that I first played many years ago, and it's another one I played with many people, introduced new players, new gamers to it, and I played it with people who've uh, played a lot of games, and everybody likes it. I don't think this has ever been a failure with anyone I've ever played it with, because it drags you in. It's similar to another game I own called Machikaro, which I really enjoy, but this one I think does the same thing, and it does it better. This is Space Base from AEG. In Space Base, essentially, you have this what looks kind of like almost piano key board with various cards you place on there, from numbers 1 to 12. Every turn, you roll the die, and if the die, you can either take the total of the number or you can split them depending on what the face on each die is. and you can activate your cards that have those numbers. But as you upgrade cards and you purchase new cards and you upgrade cards, those older cards kind of go at the top of your thing. You tuck them under, and then when somebody else rolls and you get that number, you get that ability from the tucked card, and you can keep building up tucked cards, and then you can buy some colony cards, which give you a bonus, but then that number is out of play for the rest of the game. So there's a lot of really, really cool cards that have some fun abilities. And again, what is really cool about this game is you are invested every turn, because even when it's not your turn, you want to know what that dice roll is going to do. Is it going to help you in some way? Can it help you in some way? You're always paying attention to that. So I freaking love Space Base. Again, major hit with everyone I played it with. That is Space Base. That is my number 3, and that is from AEG. Now, there are a lot of good basic deck builders out there, but I chose this one because it's one of my favorites, and it is just a tremendously fun game to play. And every time I play it, I love it. I've got it, and I've got many, pretty much, I think I've got all the expansions now. And I think I've got, well, they've got a few card packs I don't have, but I think I've got all the basic expansions. But this is the DC Comics deck building game from Cryptozoic. DC Comics deck building game. I've said this before on the channel. This is the game that got me into deck building, because I'd tried to play deck builders before and I didn't get it. I didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. But when I played this one, I was like, oh, the light bulb clipped, and this is how these work. This is how what happens, and it was just such a fun game. And DC Comics deck building game, it's got the thing about not necessarily being that thematic, but of course there are other versions of it. The Injustice version that came out recently is just amazing. I always have fun, and again, everybody I played this game with has really enjoyed it. And again, I played with people new to these kinds of games, and I played with experienced gamers. Everybody I played with has enjoyed the DC Comics deck building game. Just a tremendous game that's light enough that it's easy to teach. You can take like the core box with you somewhere. You can just go to a restaurant and stuff and teach it. So that's really good. They've also got like the 2 smaller version, or the 3 smaller versus versions that you can do. So that's a lot of fun too. So that is the DC Comics deck building game. That is my number 2, and that is from Cryptozoic. Okay, so my number 1. My number 1 is a game that's got a pretty big footprint, and yet I think it is incredibly easy to teach. Again, this is a game I have played with experienced gamers who love it, and it's a game I played with people new to the hobby, and they have loved it. Again, I don't know that I played this game with anybody who disliked it. Various levels of like the love in this game, but nobody that's disliked it, and I think it's a great, dramatic, fun, tense game that you laugh with your friends a lot. This is Zombicide, and I could say this for any Zombicide. Here, I'll say the Undead or Alive, which is the latest one that I play, which is I'm getting a huge kick out of it. Maybe my favorite so far. Zombicide, and specifically Undead or Alive, I played this not too long ago when I was in Wyoming. I played it with my friend Mike and his kids, and his kids were fairly young. They were, I can't like maybe 7 to 12 or something like that, and they picked it up. They got it. They were sharp, and it's an easy game to learn, and it's an easy game to play, and they got it, and we had a blast with it. And I played various other incarnations with Zombicide, as I say, with again people new to the hobby, people who played it, and everybody loves Zombicide. I've yet to play this game where it fell flat. And I played it a lot solo. I played it with full player counts. I played it everywhere in between, and I always get a kick out of it. You see those zombies coming, and it's tense and it's scary. And I think that's maybe one of the important ways that draw people into the hobby is when you can create situations where it's tense. And this too has the advantage of being a cooperative game. Some of the other games here were cooperative as well, like Star Wars, the Clone Wars. And I think cooperative games too are great ways to teach, because there's no hidden information. You're helping each other as you go. And Zombicide is great. Kim played Zombicide for the first time here, I think it was earlier this year, and she just got a kick out of it. We played it a few times. It's tremendous fun. I love Zombicide. I've got most of the iterations of it. I'm looking forward. I got the Marvel Zombies coming to me Marvel Zombies coming to me in the mail through the Kickstarter. Hopefully by the time I get this video up. But it's great. I can't recommend Zombicide enough. So I would recommend it. And that is my number 1, Zombicide. That is from CMON. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me know. What do you think? What are your favorite gateway games? What games do you think are great for introducing new people into the hobby? What do you think of my list? Are there games you would put on there? Are there games you wouldn't put on there? Let me know. I'm always happy to hear what you have to say. Just please keep it civil. So leave a comment here on YouTube, Board Game Geek, on Facebook, on Twitter. Please subscribe, like us, and on all that social media. We really appreciate it. I'd also ask you to check out my other channel, Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history. Please subscribe to that channel. That would mean a lot to me. And also, too, if you really like the channel, you like the content we bring here, please consider clicking on the super thanks button and leaving a tip. Again, that would mean a lot to us. Now, let me ask you a question. Where exactly did Luke Skywalker go after he was attacked by the Wampa? The hospital.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
So in summation, I have got to say that I hate this game. Psych, I love it. It's probably my favorite game I've ever played.